So when we're talking about mechanisms, we are mainly looking at cell studies and animal studies, mainly cell studies more so, where scientists are studying the effect of something on a cell line in a petri dish. Okay, so our cells are incredibly complex. They have thousands of biochemical pathways, Krebs cycle, citric acid cycle, electron transport chain. There's tons of stuff going on. Like cell has different parts, उसमें अलग चीजें चल रही है, tons of transcription factors. It's like very incredibly complex. Like it's an understatement to even say that. So the scientists and researchers can make certain changes to the cell and see whether certain pathways are upregulated. Like commonly, if people are studied about nutrition, you might have heard of mTOR or autophagy, or people look at these pathways, or they might look at the mitochondria and see electrons, like how the electrons are being used and uska output kya hai, how much inflammatory products are being made in the cell. So that's what we mean when we say mechanisms. We're just looking at a cell and we are trying to look at the pathway of a certain area of the cell, like the mitochondria or different aspects, and then see the effect of something on that particular pathway and the outcome of that. When you talk about outcome, we're talking about humans. Okay, so you're looking at how to make that research practical. The limitations of using something in a cell is that quantity typically बहुत ज़्यादा रहती है. Okay, so you might use a certain, you might give a cell a certain thing, but the quantity of that will be much larger than what you can ever give to any normal human. So typically in cell studies we see that the doses used are really high compared to what you would ever give to someone. So that makes the results not translatable at all. Then there's the issue where once you get into pathways, as we were discussing off air, it can make someone think they're really smart because all these technical geeky terms. You understand कि भाई Krebs cycle क्या है, उसमें have lactate, pyruvate, NADPH. You can become a geek fest. Like if you listen to a podcast, they'll tell you about all these different aspects, and they're like, why if you increase the omega-3, there's a fats enzyme, and then it has to get ALA has to get converted. You think you're really
Delta
smart.
6 desaturase.
But as I said, the cells are incredibly complex. For everything we understand, there's probably more mechanisms we haven't discovered, and there are other compensatory mechanisms which often we don't understand. कि चलो pathway समझ भी आता है, we might not understand how the effects end up translating. Let me give you a very practical example. So for a long time, lot of the internet, lot of influencers have pushed this idea that vegetable oils are toxic and that omega-6, because of how it's going to go in the pathway, it's going to interfere with the utilization of omega-3s. That's been a dominant narrative for many influencers. I have believed that as well. So that's why I'm saying from personal experience. It's a very good example to use. And people often thought of omega-6, there are a couple of types of omega-6. The main one is linoleic acid. Okay, this is an essential fatty acid. The body doesn't make it, so you have to take it in. And if you look at the pathway, some researchers made out an argument in mechanistic studies that the linoleic acid will interfere with the conversion of the plant-based omega-3 to the actual EPA DHA that we use. So that's why, and then we had some research about the omega-6-3 ratio also. And then people talk about, ancestrally we had so much, and now the omega-6-3 ratio has gone up so much. So these kind of arguments were used to make the narrative that omega-6 is pro-inflammatory, right? This is an example of mechanistic research where you're just looking at pathways. Why is that not true? Okay, when we actually take omega, linoleic acid, and we give it to people, you can look at the
actual human.
Yeah, actual human. We look at the tissue levels of omega-6. We look at the blood levels. We find that the higher that is, the better the outcomes are. We have again randomized control trials with seed oils where we see no increase in inflammation. In fact, there's a drop in certain studies. Even meta-analysis of randomized control trials with seed oils looking at CRP levels, which is the dominant inflammatory marker, gold standard, what most studies look at. No increase. Even they've looked at 20, 30 other inflammatory markers, no increase at all. Trials lasting 3 months, 6 months. Heated seed oils also no increase.
You're a lot of flag for this.
I mean, people can understand very well with this example that if you make opinions based on early research, most of the times when actual proper trials are done, you'll end up being proven wrong because there are always holes. And we can look at these examples and understand. There's another good example of HDL. for a long time, even this is a common narrative you must have heard, कि भाई, a lot of people will tell you your LDL high है तो ठीक है, as long as your HDL is also high and your triglycerides are low, right? So this was a thing that was even believed by many good scientists also, because we had many long-term observational studies showing that low HDL levels increase risk of heart disease. So there was a lot of hype around trying to develop drugs for HDL. To increase HDL. And they invested billions of dollars in developing those drugs, but all of the trials failed. Like, and this whole idea that bhai, pharmaceutical companies can just fund any study and get the result they want, it's clearly like, I mean, you can influence it a bit, but typically if someone's influencing a study, if you're a good researcher, you can spot there will be issues in the method section. You can't just throw a study out because it's funded. You have to go through it, and you will be able to find issues in the design or like the way in which they looked at certain things or the kind of tools they used. Again, all of this is very technical.
It's traceable.
Like
it's traceable. Like if
you can
some school,
if you know your stuff and you're technical enough, you can find issues in how the study has been designed if funding is influencing that. So the observation studies and early research showed us that HDL has a connection, but actually developing drugs for that and increasing that, and not just one kind of drugs, fibrates, niacin, CETP inhibitors, the different classes of drugs, like how for LDL we have different classes of drugs, no effect whatsoever. So we see it again and again. This is not just a theoretical thing, but most times findings we see early in animals and cells, we don't see it being confirmed in humans, which is why we should always wait for outcome data rather than going for the mechanisms and the cells.
How can a normal person differentiate between if I am citing something or if I am saying something online or if I am coming and telling you something? How should a normal person distinguish between is he talking from a mechanistic perspective or an outcome based perspective?